All right, hit
But
record.
there's like
Sorry, I hadn't done that yet. So maybe I'll give one of you the prologue and one of you the outro.
there's actually
That sounds.
three. There's like a voiceover in the middle too.
Oh, there is. That was weird. I did
It
not
is, yeah, one of
include
only a couple.
I did not include that in my what I put on screen. So, but yeah, maybe I give you rock scissors paper for first. That's what I do in my classes. All
You
Just
got
decisions
it,
want to
in
Brian.
make
Japan are made
sure
with rock
I'm
scissors
being
paper.
heard and make sure I want to make sure I'm not being too loud. Just I'm sorry, I'm
Ah.
just adjusting all the little
Okay,
things
I
to make me
think
sound
you're
professional.
okay.
I'm not coming through my own headphones very loud. Maybe I just need to crank up my
You're coming through
output.
fine on our end,
Yeah,
but
you're coming through just fine. Yeah.
you might be the loudest. I mean, not by a degree that matters, but but from when I'm getting in my headset.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm not too loud because I think I've over amplified a few times. Also,
Now,
I need to turn
what
off
kind of
this
microphone
fan.
are you using? Just out of curiosity.
I am using a Yeti Blue. It's
Oh,
actually
okay. You're
black.
using the
Yeti
green
That's
one.
Blue,
very
Okay.
popular.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
as used by John Champion on Mission Log.
I tried to replace this with a cheapish mic, and it I was on the iPad, and Mark was like, "Your regular mic, the iPad mic sounds as good or better than the one you're using." So I just need to spruce
And
it.
BC, is that a USB microphone or do you have a
Yes,
sound? Oh, okay.
it is USB. Just no fancy schmancy. Just plugs straight in.
Because Luke
Sounds
uses
great.
the ball, the blue
There's
ball.
like a one called the Snowball or something. The
It's
Yeti
the snowball.
Snowball.
And I had gotten a snowball once, but this computer couldn't handle it because it's so old. Like it's like no driver required. And this computer's like, "Where's the driver?" It's like, "What?" So I returned it. But
So why do they call it snowball?
yeah, I got
And they're
snowballed. Okay.
Sorry. Never mind. Never mind.
You're like this. When I was a young buck in my 20s working environmental education, I had a white Volkswagen Beetle, and the women I worked with like named it Snowball for dirty reasons. So that made me happy.
Yeah.
I was like, if I name it Snowball, I'm an asshole. But if they say it's Snowball, I'm like, okay, yes, it is.
Hey, give me 2 more seconds and I'll be ready to go. Hang on.
No problem. But yeah. When I used to drive manual, Japan is weird. You have to get a separate license to drive a manual transmission.
Oh, no way.
So I technically
Yeah.
cannot drive manual anymore. I have to drive automatic.
It's funny, man. I got a friend of mine got his car stolen. Basically, he pulled his keys out after being at the bars, and they kind of pushed him down, grabbed his keys, went to take his you know manual
Yeah.
transmission, steal his car, and they couldn't get it started. I'm guessing because they didn't know to step on the clutch while they were turning the key, and so it wouldn't start. It's like, how do you start this thing? He's like, figure it out.
It's like I don't think I'm going to help you with that, man. The story I think I've told on a few podcasts is when I was playing in bands and stuff. Another band, the bass player is walking his stuff back to his car in a bad part of town, as the clubs are all in bad parts of towns at that time, and being mugged with the line, "Give me all Christmas." It was like right before Christmas, so that was the threat. Give me your Christmas.
Yeah.
So we all use that as a Christmas greeting now for each other. I'm just staring at BC.
Ooh, so if I do the outro, do I get to say? Oh no, because that was in the preview for next week, where they said, "Fuck, he didn't discombobulated." Was the word he used.
Sorry,
He said discombobulated, and I looked it up, and it's an actual word. It's synonymous with discombobulated.
Oh,
Probably because it was only used once by Rod
I was gonna
Serling.
say, isn't that discombobulated? That's how
Yeah.
I remember that
yeah,
word.
Change in the Guard had a word I definitely did not know when I was getting it. I mean, I think it was supposed to be like a prep school or whatever. So I guess the whole idea was to sound like overly smart.
Yeah.
Uh, Perspicacious. That's it.
Perspicacious
Perspicacious. Yeah, does that ring a
means you
bell,
have
friend?
perspicacity.
I guess it does, but yeah, it was new for me. I'm like, okay, sure. Sorry, closing my browser there just for easies. Okay, I guess we'll do it. Let's I'll 5 second it then and roll in. Hello, welcome to Time Enough Podcast. It's where we delve into all of the episodes of The Twilight Zone and beyond. This is Matt here. We're going for a three-person podcast today. It's a auspicious episode. It's number 100, if you don't count the bonus episodes, which
Yay.
yeah, 100.
Applause.
Happy 100. There's one of our folks. It's Brian. He's back. Brian is back.
Yep, it's me.
It make me think of the Beach Boys every time I say that, but that's cool. Beach Boys Love You album, very strange one. Another regular, also in for number 100 from the Mission Log, the Orville podcast. Mike Richards is back. Howdy.
Howdy, Matt. Hey, BC. Good to be here. And yeah, quite an honor, quite a thrill for me when I looked up this episode to start my research. I was like, number 100, written by, I'll let you cover that. Named after a poem by somebody else near and dear to my heart as a Long Islander. So yeah, glad to be here and looking forward to diving and exploring this episode.
Well, yeah, we're getting right at the end of season 3. And because Mike, you pointed this one out when I started season 3, like 87 years ago, right? And more recently, BC's been like, when's the Bradbury coming? When's the Bradbury coming? He don't want Cavender. He wants for the Bradbury. And I was like, well, 100, let's bring everybody in. Let's do it. So
I think we kind of double booked because I was probably saying the same thing to you. It's like, what's the Bradbury episode coming?
oh no, we did it, and then last week I was like, that's Mike, when you got the email. It's like, wait a minute, Mike want to do it too. Let's just triple header.
Sure, why not?
Different thing.
One big.
Yeah, and this way we'll make sure that BC and my IMDb page are completely identical. So we'll just do the same things from here on out, and they'll just stay the same.
Yeah, keep the scorecard steady. I will go ahead and trivia this one up as you were intimating a bit. Original air date was May 18th, 1962. Script is by Ray Bradbury. Anyone who has read any science fiction literature knows him from classics such as Fahrenheit 451, The Martian Chronicles, and The Illustrated Man. Interestingly, he contributed several scripts to The Twilight Zone, but this was the only one produced. But if you want to get a stronger taste of that Bradbury flavor, the Ray Bradbury Theater was an 80s vintage anthology show in the Twilight Zone mold that is in the long distance crosshairs of this podcast. On my shelf here is sitting the Ray Bradbury Theater, Tales from the Dark Side, and Night Gallery. So if anyone's wondering where this goes when we run out of Twilight Zone
And more Twilight Zone, right?
Oh, we got the Peel, we got the 80s. The Forrest Whitaker one I haven't think is on YouTube. I'm having trouble tracking that one down, to be honest, but
I think it's out there.
It's out there somewhere. It's out there somewhere. It's not as easy to find as the other ones. But where was I? Oh yes, trivia. This episode has a dual directing credit. James Sheldon and William F. Claxton were both regulars in the zone, as well as workhorse directors for 60s television. Robograndma was played by Josephine Hutchinson. She had some major film appearances as the leading lady of 1939's Son of Frankenstein and as the fake Mrs. Townsend in North by Northwest. Weirdly, she was also the real Mrs. Townsend for 35 years with her second husband, James F. Townsend. So I found that as a weird little bit of irony. David White played Mr. Rogers. If he seems a touch familiar, it may be because you've already seen him in The Twilight Zone's A World of Difference. That or his role as Darren Stevens' boss, Larry Tate, on Bewitched. Yep, I got the point. The Once Upon a Time in America point from Mike.
Yeah, all those gray hairs are nodding at Bewitched. Yeah, we remember.
The salesman was Vaughn Taylor. He appeared in plenty of anthology shows such as Kraft Television Theater and Robert Montgomery Presents, as well as in films such as Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and Psycho. We've already seen him in The Zone in Still Valley and Time Enough at Last, and he will appear in 2 more episodes. While most of the child actors in this have few other credits, we do have to note that 13-year-old Annie was played by Veronica Cartwright. As a child, she also appeared in Hitchcock's The Birds, and once she was a little older, she landed iconic roles in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Witches of Eastwick, The Right Stuff, and her Saturn Award-winning role as Lambert in Alien. Okay, So yeah, like I said, the prologue was so short, and it didn't even occur to me we also are doing the two guest things. So you know what I think I'll do, Mike, since you already mentioned outro, I guess we're gonna give DC the intro, and Mike, you can take the outro on this.
Sounds good to me.
They make a fairly convincing pitch here. It doesn't seem possible, though, to find a woman who must be 10 times better than Mother in order to seem half as good, except, of course, in the Twilight Zone.
Ooh, that was good.
Did you dry your teeth?
Yeah, you have to have that stiff, dry upper lip in order to fall into the Searling voice. Yes.
I've been increasingly admitting I do not have a Rod Serling impression. That's why I make other people do it. But Mike, if you chase us out with the rest, and however you feel like doing it, you could. Yeah.
Oh, it's on now. A fable? Most assuredly. But who's to say at some distant moment there might be an assembly line producing a gentle product in the form of a grandmother whose stock in trade is love? Fable? Sure. But who's to say?
Ray Bradbury used to say. I don't know. I just started getting in my head like I just started getting in my head like a robot chicken sketch of like Rod Serling impersonations, like competing or something. Which, well, we
Yes,
just
please
got
send one if you vote for Mike's impersonation, and send two to vote for Brian's impersonation. We'll take a poll, or
I know
three
what.
if you want to throw in Andrew, because he's the one who's always does it.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I was going to throw in that a different person, but you basically do get that in a Star Trek Lower Decks with the competing Mark Twain impression. So,
Do declare.
do declare this episode is a proper sci-fi. I guess I don't. Sorry, I'm going more into Foghorn Leghorn there.
As one does.
I'm from Georgia. I should be able to do a Foghorn Leghorn. But did were either of you guys like familiar with this episode? Because definitely knew the title. I definitely knew Bradbury had written one. It's if I've seen it before, it didn't stick to the bones, but it would have been like 30 years since I've seen it. So
I kind of feel the same way. I don't think there's any way I could have avoided this, in syndication on WPIX in New York, coming on right after Star Trek, that I watched pretty much every night from the time I was 7 until I was like probably 22. So I'm sure I've seen it before, but it just, honest to God, it didn't really stand out as one I had seen before. And then watching it, I was kind of like, I don't know that I had.
I'm pretty sure I had at some point in the past, but like you said, it didn't. Despite the name, the episode, it wasn't like a heavy hitter in the Twilight Zone sense. It didn't have like some really mind-bending twist in the middle of it that makes you go, "Oh yeah, I'm going to remember this one forever." Yeah, so it was a very gentle story, very well Bradbury story.
yeah, I think I was waiting for a stronger twist at the end. I don't know what. I mean, I'm not a writer. I'm not wearing the writer's hat for this, but like I guess one thing I did think about is, other than Asimov books and maybe a few that Bradbury had written as well, this is one of the first times on TV we were really getting kind of a measure of the man sort of look at like with we'll call it a robot in this case, but with the BUT sound at the end. But
Yeah, it's funny because when I heard her say robot, Asimov famously said pronounce it robot, and I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, that's sort of at the end where like maybe someday I'll be granted the greatest gift of all, which is life, and the kids are like, "Ah, oh, Grandma, you've always been alive to us." It was like, where's that line between sentience and just machinery? And that might have been a question that could have been asked maybe more overtly in this episode, but I think it was brought up. Yeah, you're exactly right.
but yeah, it's like, and at the end, it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm just going back, and Mike, maybe it was in I think it was in your notes, almost like, oh, she's going back into like the collective or into the the
Yeah,
AI
when she said,
cloud or something.
yeah, she said, I'm going to go into a room with voices with other, robots, and we're going to share each other's thoughts and things like that. I'm like, that's the collective, man. She's going back into the cloud or the collective or back into the database or the, computer electronic processing unit. I think it was described in Modern Science magazine, something along those lines. And yeah, I was just sort of envisioning, all right, disassembly, but memory gets uploaded, and she'll be with, kind of a collective consciousness. I thought that was pretty cool and a little bit way ahead of its time, I'd say.
About the robot thing, robot, whichever way you're going to say it. Apparently, that is Anne Francis during the Forbidden Planet press tour kept saying robot, and everyone liked her, so everyone else started saying robot too. But robot.
Oh, so before that it was robot.
Yeah, robot.
She single-handedly changed the pronunciation of that word forever.
Except for Captain Kirk or something, but yeah, he's got his own things to say. Brian, did you pick up any of these threads or want to comment on them?
Let's see. Yeah, it's how many years out? We always use kind of Star Trek as a touchstone here. How many years out are we from what are little girls made of? Right, it was only about 4 years down the road.
Years,
yeah, and so this is one of those early portrayals of a fully human looking android on screen, except for earlier in the Twilight Zone when we had the Lonely. And yeah, there were well, I had some morals, meanings, and message ideas out of this. Not so much about the portrayal of a robot living with a family, which has become kind of a trope. We've seen it from what was it, the Bicentennial Man, which was an Asimov story with Robin Williams in it. I don't know if you guys saw that movie.
Although Robin Williams did apologize for that movie on stage later, but
there's been a lot of retellings of this sort of story. And in fact, there's another version of this very same story, which I mentioned in chat a while ago. I don't know if you saw it. There's an 80s movie starring
I saw it, and
Gene Staples and
I didn't
I'm
put
sorry, Maureen
trivia.
Stapleton.
I didn't put in my trivia, but I did spot that. But it's one of those things where it's like I should watch it later. I mean, back when we did like After Hours, like, well, I don't think I should watch the later one. I think I should just focus on the one we're doing now. But
yeah, so as I was watching this and I was putting my thoughts together for it, it reminded me of a Sci-Fi 5 episode that I heard that had a similar Bradbury story. So I kind of started looking into that first. Yeah, and it was called The Electric Grandmother. And it was January 17th, 1982. And you can look that up on the Sci-Fi 5 podcast. And that was a 1982 made-for-TV film that actually was critically acclaimed and won some awards for best television programming and things like that. So it was a freaky little film with Edward Herrmann and Maureen Stapleton. And
I just watched it last night, and I saw it before, but I watched it again, and I remember the Sci-Fi 5 episode, of course. Yeah, 42 years ago this week that thing premiered.
Yeah, and, I watched it today it's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. I would suggest people check it out because it's weird. It's like part after school special and kind of part Amazing Stories, Spielberg Amazing Stories vibes, sort of like 80s sort of weird. It was just very strange. And there's apparently a lot of split opinions on it as to whether it was a much beloved. You look into YouTube, people love it, but other people were creeped out about too. They said it's got a nightmare fuel they had from when they were in elementary school and being forced to watch this movie because I think they had 16mm prints of it that were going around the schools and they were watching it in class. And
it's produced by something like the Learning Education Corporation of America or something, the American Learning Corporation of America. And it was very a little bizarre. The one sort of I wouldn't say twist, but more of like a denouement or a sort of like epilogue that the film had that this episode did not, was that the kids who weren't Tom, Karen, and Ann, they were as two boys and a girl in the film or in the after school special. They grew up and they were actually accomplished, but they were old, and they were able to get grandma out of the literal room with other retired grandmas and re-employ that robot to take care of them in their old age, which was, kind of a neat,
Yeah,
not
it was
really
a little
twist, but
odd, I thought. Yeah,
sort of a
because
nice send off.
Reuse, recycle. Sure.
exactly. But the kids in that movie, and I know we're digressing from the episode here a little bit, but the kids in the movie apparently did have families of their own, because the thing you would expect to happen is one or more of them would have children, and they would bring her back to be their grandma, and so on and so on. In this case, they're kind of more like she's kind of like the caretaker of this old folks home of 3 kids. It was kind of a little
Same
odd.
house. Yeah. It was a
Same
little
house.
odd.
Well, it was no budget. That had to be the same house.
Yeah.
It was just so strange.
They never moved out of town. I don't know. One that kept going through my mind. Of course, I didn't watch Electric Grandma. I do think I saw it in the '80s, like you guys said. I think it was one of those things they just showed everywhere, and you caught it at some point, if I remember. Like maybe I was homesick from school and it was like 10 in the morning and they were showing on PBS, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking a lot also about Mary Poppins from 3 years later. This, like, several parts in this episode, I kind of expected it to burst into song. Like, I thought the salesman was going to start doing a song about how they build the robots, or at the beginning I thought the kids were going to sing or something, and there were several times when there was like a pregnant pause and I was just like, here's where the song starts.
It would work, man. It would work. It would work with, Dad, heartfelt song of loss and love, loss of love, loss of his wife and his love for the kids, because, his performance, the dad's performance was very good. He was like, when he was like, love you don't need, you get plenty of that from me. What you need is basically logistics. But I thought that was very, very well acted, and his, concern and his patience for the kid. So had he broken into a very heartfelt song of loss and love about his family, I think that would have fit. I think the kind of eerie, what was it, Facsimile Limited? Facsimile Limited was the name of the corporation.
Mm-hmm.
The salesman for that company, I think, could have broken into song with, talking about body parts that you can
here's
use.
your ears,
Willy
and here's your
Wonka
eyes,
style
and here's your
song.
nose, and here's
And I think it would have done great. There would have been a something similar to a spoonful of sugar, however that song goes.
The medicine go down. That's right.
Yeah,
I
could
have to
have
confess,
been very, very well done.
I have to confess, I did not. The Mary Poppins parallel did not come into my head. But it's the magical nanny. It's exactly what an electric grandma is. So
Right. So
makes
who's
perfect
creepier,
sense.
the electric grandmother or Mary Poppins?
I thought the electric grandmother, meaning back to the Twilight Zone.
I'm
now
talking about the Twilight Zone version.
just to be clear to everybody.
Mhm.
Back to the Twilight Zone. The electric grandmother was fantastic. I thought she showed patience and grace. I thought her time with Anne, where she listened and tried to build trust and didn't lay down ultimatums, and tried to seek why Anne was so upset, and made her understand the gravity of say out loud the reason she was upset was because her mom left her because she's dead, and she's afraid that everybody would leave her at that point. Like, that was some phenomenal, like just graduate level grandma, display of skills. I thought it was just great. I really did. In fact, it reminded me a lot of if you guys remember the 1970s TV series Family, with Seda Thompson, Meredith Baxter Burney, and Christy McNichol. That series, the mom, played by Seda Thompson, actually won an Emmy for best performance by a female lead. Reminded me very much of that same character, and I actually looked at it. It was about a 15-year difference, but I looked it up just to see if it was maybe, some people just play older than they really are, and I thought maybe it was the same actress, but it was not. But I thought the electric grandmother in this episode was not creepy at all. I thought she was just flat out wonderful.
Okay, Mary Poppins.
I like Josephine too. Yes.
No, I only first saw Mary Poppins for the first time last year, and I was like, we kind of came to the end of her thought that she seems a little insidious here, which
Yes.
this one you're kind of expecting like a little bit of a Black Mirror technology going wrong by, but here it's no electric grandma works. She does her job. She doesn't seem to mind when it's back to the shop for whatever reason, which that's a little weird, but from a modern perspective. But it's I guess clean storytelling for 1962.
Yeah, and you could think of all of the things that that they could have done that they didn't. And I respect this episode for not going there, because they could have ended with, well, I don't want to go away. I want to be alive. I want to stay alive. I want to have a purpose. And really kind of throwing in a lot of moral gray area there. But I think it was just a great sort of ending. And the truth is that there is a circle of life, and I don't know why all three kids were going to college at the same time. That kind of confused me a little bit too. It's time for all three of you to go to college. Okay, did you two wait for the last one? Just so, never mind. But they did, and it was sort of time to move on to the next phase of life. And I think that's a much healthier way to wrap things up than to try to hang on to the previous phase of life.
Yeah, I recently, like 3 years ago, by recently, 3 or 4 years ago, did read through the most of Asimov's books. I do think that had a better grasp on, thinking about robots than maybe Bradbury. Bradbury does have a lighter touch. And in the Twilight Zone, too, we just had the trade-ins, which is one that was, ready to go and be a Black Mirror episode a few years early, but also ended up being kind of weirdly sweet in the end. The other shoe didn't drop. And I wonder if, it's kind of interesting.
And then the other thing that I think would probably get done today, if it wasn't for that sentient AI question, would have been some malfunction, right, or some weird attachment. So you've got movies like Her, where Joaquin Phoenix famously became fell in love with his AI friend, and this episode, but I think it was pretty clean. I was wondering if there was going to be any kind of like malfunction though, where they all become to think of this person, or think of grandma as a real person, and then it sort of pulls the rug out from under them, showing that she's not. But that didn't happen either. And I, for a nice little tight 30-minute episode, I think it was nice the way it was.
Something I didn't touch on much in this episode is, I think, maybe what exactly happened with Mom. I kind of started to get the impression that Mom committed suicide from what Dad was saying. And I didn't write.
Yeah, that's not really spelled out. Yeah.
My note about that's like 75% through the episode. So something later on was starting to give me those vibes, I think. Maybe
probably,
I watched it.
The girls. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I didn't pick up on that, but I'm not nearly as intelligent. My emotional intelligence is not as high as yours is, Matt. So yeah, if you picked up on something like that, it's interesting. I know in the subsequent film it was not really spelled out either.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. And but the fact that the girl keeps going on that she, Mom left us, I mean, it almost sound like you could read suicide into that, because it's like a choice. So maybe she made that choice, but we don't know why or what happened to her. But yeah, it's kind of left pretty vague in both cases.
But interesting choice of words,
Mm-hmm.
Interesting choice of words. I think there's.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, Matt, I think there's something to that. I think whatever you picked up on them might, I'm sure it has merit.
I was going to say I have some lighter observations too here. Darren's boss there, I apologize if I've already forgotten the actor's name, but
Great Caesar's ghost.
Yeah, I have in my notes, their father is a mustached Harry Kissinger, and then in parentheses I put RIH, so that's a rest in hell.
Okay. I didn't know what the RIH meant, but yeah, as opposed to RIP. Okay, yeah,
that's what sense. That means. All right, thank you.
It reminds me that I just rewatched one of the episodes of the Orville where Charlize Theron guest starred as Priya Levesque, and Ed Mercer looked at her and he goes, "Well, I got a pretty good idea where you can go." And she was like, "Where?" He was like, "To hell." She's like, "Is that a place I should know about?" So it was kind of thing like when I was thinking R.I.P. and it said R.I.H., I was like, yeah, I probably should have put those things together, but I was just about as clueless as poor Captain Priya Levesque was in.
I don't think
Was
it's a
on the
normal
Orville.
nomenclature. So
Just make that up.
yeah, I will say I did, since I was already expecting songs when Robograndma gets run over by the mail truck. I got the song "Grandma Got Run Over by a Mail Truck" playing in the back of my head.
Oh, dude, I wrote a couple of lines. Like I wrote some lines to that. I was like, "Grandma got run over by a Dodge van walking out from Anne's house one fine eve. You can say you don't believe in robots, but Anne and Tom and Karen, they believe."
Okay, good. You took it much farther than I did.
Oh,
I
Mike,
made
is
the
there one-stop
observation.
shop for all the lyrical needs for the show from now on? We'll just
So she but it was funny because that she did the push, the push Anne from out in front of that van, and then she just kind of like laid on the ground, right? And then I was like, okay, so she laid on the ground. That couldn't have hurt that bad. But then you see the truck in front of her in the next scene, and I'm like, oh, she got ran over by a Dodge van.
The Dodge van works better in mail truck. I should have thought of that. Okay.
It's only so much you could show on TV in this era, or even today.
Yeah.
That'd be
Because
a little too brief
and I
for-
didn't notice that till my second viewing of it. I thought she just kind of like dove on the ground and everybody thought she was dead. And I'm like, well, and I know the robot's
No.
probably not all that expensive because your guy, mustachioed Harry Kissinger, not only could he afford not only could he afford the electric grandma, but he could also afford a new Lincoln Continental with suicide doors, which is a pretty badass ride. So if he's got enough money for both, he's either killing it or or maybe Facsimile Limited has very affordable payment plans.
Yeah. Well, you also got life insurance.
You think he had life insurance on the wife? I hope so.
I mean,
Oh, I hadn't thought of that angle either.
It's a nice house, so you assume I mean, they don't say what his job is, I guess, but you assume it's probably something a touch upscale.
I think so, because I think that's probably the crux of, why he was working so much. Now, they called that woman Aunt. She had a weird name, right?
The first one, or
yeah, the bossy aunt that came by to
Nedra.
I'm not happy at all. I am not happy at all with how things are going.
That's Aunt Nedra.
Nedra. Yeah. So I'm thinking, whose aunt? The deceased wife's aunt, I bet.
That would be, or well, that was the thing. I maybe because I was already thinking Mary Poppins. I actually was like thinking she was just a nanny and not a relation.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Or
they
if she
called her
was a sister or a sibling of the
Yeah.
parents, or if she was
Yeah.
an aunt of the parents. I don't remember.
Yeah, they called her Aunt Nedra, which was kind of a weird name.
And then that character shows up in the other movie too, so it confused me.
Yeah, and I think in
Almost
that one she was Aunt Carla or something was her
Aunt Clara, I think. And
Clara. Yeah, it was Clara.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird. Yeah, just a couple little minor differences. But yeah, that Lincoln was definitely sweet. Any other
this should have had like a commercial for the Lincoln Continental at the end of the episode instead of the normal PSA. That would have been fun. I do wish he's had the advertisement sometimes. That'd be so fun to watch now.
That would be fun. I mean, it really, I went down this YouTube rabbit hole the other day where I just started watching, shows from 40 years ago, like they were complete with their commercial breaks. So they were basically like recorded on VCR and then uploaded digitally. And I was just like, I don't remember everything being so flat out awful back then, but my gosh, that's not good.
I like to watch
talking mostly about the ads.
Yeah, I like to watch SCTV on my iPad late at night, sometimes on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's clearly someone taped them like in the late 80s from West Palm Beach TV. because sometimes the ads are there, and it's kind of disappointing when they're not. And the fun thing is, since it's SCTV, which is already like weird fake television, there's
Yeah.
barely a line to cross. It's just like the slight bit of irony is taken away. It's basically the same thing when it goes into the advertisements. So I do like that. What else I got? Oh, I just I put my notes. I thought the sales shop was kind of a reverse Apple store where everything was black and hard to
Yeah. It was interesting. So I kind of pictured myself like, okay, you walk in and everything's dark. So what's the first thing all of us are going to do, right? Pull out your phone and turn on flashlight mode. But you can't, you're not walking around with a flashlight in 1962. So although the old man probably had one in his car, whatever he had before the Lincoln, we don't know what he drove. Well, we did see it out there. It kind of looked like a 1960 something to me. I was thinking it was like a 60 Catalina Bonneville, something like that. A lot of people traded them in every year, every other year back then. But no flashlight. So they had to kind of deal with the creepy, the very creepy presentation where the first thing he shows is the eyeballs. He's like, okay, let's start with, and the kid's like, oh, cool, man. These look like the marbles I play with.
Most kids would turn around and run out the door at that point. But oh, wait, the door closed behind them. It was this weird future door that just materializes and dematerializes. That was my first sign, like, oh, this place is going to be weird.
but as I'm kind of inclined to do, is, when I watch stuff like this, I try to think of it in light of like, okay, what can I learn that I can, use in my daily life? And one of the things that I saw was, Anne ran out upset. Dad went with her. The other kids just picked out their new grandma on their own, right? Eyes, hair color, body, voice. That first voice was tough. That last voice was better than the first voice, but still not right. But they finally got the Goldilocks voice right. But anyway, they pick out this grandma on their own. They're just throwing parts down the chute. It's heading to the factory. No supervision, right? The salesman's just thinking cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And, I think the root of the problem, or, I don't think it lasted very long, but the reason why Anne had such a hard time accepting this person was because there was no buy-in, right?
Or the wall
she wasn't there. I'm sorry?
That or the wall of ears.
the wall of ears might have freaked her out.
Was that more creepy than the wall of eyes? I don't know. The wall of ears.
That wall of ears just reminded me of, okay, where did they get the ears? And then I'm thinking, okay, we didn't really get into Vietnam yet, so it wasn't there. It was like, I was freaked out by the wall of ears.
407 MASH, I got them from there.
Yeah, they got them from MASH, which we all know is Korea anyway.
The thing I was thinking of when these kids were throwing the parts in the bin is, who's to say they're going to throw the right number of parts? You could have had a total Frankenstein monster with 3 eyes and 4 arms coming out the other side.
You never know,
because they couldn't choose. Oh, just
maybe
pick one eye of every color.
Yeah, and I don't think 1962 there was a whole lot of quality control going on in U.S. factories yet, right? That had yet to be.
Yeah, things could have gone terribly wrong right at that point. But
yeah, we didn't have Deming and Jung and people like that. But yeah, I think, get some buy-in from the whole team. If you want a project to be successful, make sure everybody, including and especially the most staunch objectors, right? The people that are most against the project, get them involved early and get their buy-in if you want it to be successful.
Yeah, my notes in the store, I'll just read them since we're into it. But well, the red flags just keep popping up in this business. Hey, buddy, you want an eyeball? I thought that would be like the pitch, Mention the wall of ears, and things are not getting less creepy as we go. I think that's once they're like going through bins and stuff. I'm like, okay, it's not getting less creepy. So, of course, it's not really. I guess it's not that creepy in the end. They build a grandma.
Yeah, not too old, not too young, not too big, not too small. Voice just right. Yeah, and they got it right. But man, Karen and of course Karen and Tom, not a lot of sympathy, not a lot of grace offered to young Anne with the problems that she was having.
Aren't siblings terrible to each other? I don't know. I'm an only child, but
was Anne the youngest or the oldest? I think judging for her height, I don't know. I thought she was
Yeah,
the oldest in
yeah, I
the
thought she was the
story.
oldest, but yeah, I mean, you know,
Because in the Electric Grandmother, she's the youngest. So they
Yeah,
reverse it. So,
right.
I teach groups of kids, and sometimes the younger ones are horrible to the older ones. What's fun in Japan is also sometimes the kids look exactly the same, but they're different ages. So sometimes if they're not right next to each other, like they're 5 years old and 7 years old, so if they're not next to each other, I don't know which one this is sometimes.
All right. I don't know if you want to cut this out, but I think you've just gone on record as saying all Japanese kids look alike.
No, families look alike is what I'm saying. Families look alike.
That's true. There is definitely a family resemblance.
And there is a stronger thing in Japan where like the kids in a family do really do look alike. That's yes.
Since you can't see, Matt is turning beet red right now, and I apologize.
But yeah, and there's one kid where I actually thought he had a brother because I just thought he was older than he was, but he wasn't. He's just small.
You know, and the other thing is that, you know, that whole 2 against 1 thing, right? You put 3 people in a situation, and I don't want to say invariably, but often it seems like the dynamic becomes, you know, odd man out, odd person out. So I think there ends up being that dynamic in a 3-person crew or 3-person team or 3 siblings, or you know, just pick any kind of threesome you want to talk about. I don't know, maybe some kind of other threesome I haven't even thought of.
Before I get to the questions, I guess I'll open the floor to any final random observations. Random meaning they could be quite good, but
well, I had 2 points I wanted to get into. One was I alluded to the moral meaning, the message of this episode is that what does it say about grief and dealing with death? I mean, it seems like the solution is find an immortal surrogate for your dead relative and you'll be fine. And I'm not sure if that's really a good message, or is it, well, she just needed a little help and she needed someone to, take over the maternal role in her life to finally come to terms with it. We kind of skip her childhood, she goes from that point at the beginning to an adult leaving at the end, and we don't really see how she processes her mother's death. And so it kind of left a strange taste in my mouth. It's like, is this really a happy ending, or is she going to have more problems later on in life when she has to deal with other sad situations, like her father's death, for instance?
I feel like
I
one
don't know
of
what
the
you
things
guys thought
here
of
is
that.
just being. I mean, I can't think of too many things before this, considering that you can replace your loved ones with technology. Like predating this, what do we, I mean? Do the 50s have anything like that? And I feel like before World War II, that wouldn't even be a thought. Like technology just wasn't really to the point. You know, at best you're going to have a brass automation that you can see at the 39 World's Fair or something. You know,
Right. Yeah, I can't name anything. You know, the thing that came to mind for me is as my last sort of, you know, not random thought, but you know, takeaway is that, and I don't know that this was really being thought about or talked about in 1962, but families do come in all shapes and sizes, right? We have blended families now. That's much more of an issue now. It definitely seemed to be recognized maybe a little bit later in 1960s sitcoms with, you know, all the blended families we saw later
Brady
on.
Bunch.
But exactly. But families do come in shapes and sizes, and in different shapes and sizes. And when you're trying to get to know each other, just, you know, offer that grace and empathy and listen and try to get to know the other folks first before you start to issue judgment and ultimatums to each other. You know, try to listen, build that trust, be patient, and over time, because it takes time, you can learn to become a family and learn to trust and have that love and that relationship grow over time. And I think that's what the electric grandmother did so wonderfully with Anne.
Brian, you said you had one more.
Yeah,
two. That felt
just
like one.
touch on this point is the fact that we're talking about Ray Bradbury, and he was a get for the show, but it was a long time coming. I was just picking up the good old, Twilight Zone Companion a while ago and reading newer material where Mark Sakri mentioned an interview that there was kind of a falling out between Bradbury and Serling. I think it was the fact that Serling came to Bradbury early on, wanting to, do the Twilight Zone, but recognizing he didn't have the sci-fi chops. And I think Bradbury apparently uh, got the impression that, Serling was kind of mildly plagiarizing his him a little bit, and some of the plots of some of his earlier episodes bore resemblance to Bradbury. So that might explain why we only ever got this one story written by him. But Bradbury was, if not a mentor, then definitely an influence on Charles Beaumont, George Clayton Johnson. I'm missing the third one in that triad. Richard Matheson, definitely. They were like friends. So Bradbury has a very strong influence on the Twilight Zone, behind the scenes, but he's just never come to the fore before. And then sadly, this is the only time we're going to see him do it. But I just thought it was, important to recognize that there might not be a Twilight Zone without Ray Bradbury.
So. Without quite responding yet, I actually want to get into the questions to make my response. The first question, of course, being who in this episode went in or through the Twilight Zone?
Go, Mike.
I kind of feel like this was the most non-Twilight Zone episode of the Twilight Zone we've ever covered. It was honestly just, with the Twilight Zone, there's normally something kind of metaphysical. You're dealing something that would be considered otherworldly, as far as like another plane of existence, or some sort of mystical quality that we couldn't encounter. And with this, and maybe it's just the difference of 62 years having gone by, but what I saw in this episode seemed plausible. And it seemed nice, and there really wasn't much of a twist at the end. It was just kind of a straightforward story of how technology in the future might make our lives better. And I'm gonna kind of say nobody went through the Twilight Zone.
In these instances, I would say the audience went into the Twilight Zone because the whole episode was its own world, right? It was kind of an alternate reality where these technologies existed and could be used. And so they either already accepted that it was something they could do or surprised that it existed. You can say that the shop was, a magical shop that appeared on the corner one day and then disappeared the next, and it only affected that one family, but we're not given to believe that. But then again, the budget wasn't big enough that we could see dozens of households with dozens of grandmas around the neighborhood. They couldn't show it. So
now so like a typical, now I don't want to say a typical Twilight Zone episode, but something more Twilight Zone-esque, I would say, would be something's going on with the grandma. Dad runs back to the store. It's not there. It doesn't exist. Right.
Yeah.
And so just since there really wasn't anything like that, I like your big picture thinking though, of the audience went through there. That's really
That's my
quite
meta
clever
answer to that question.
that's okay, man. That's I like things, because what's sci-fi, right? It's, to me, good sci-fi is done well when it looks at human issues from a global perspective. And what's more global than what you just said? So kudos to you, sir.
But Mike, I was basically going to agree with you and say nobody went to the Twilight Zone. It's like basically a family drama plus a little possible technology, and that's to respond to what you said earlier, BC. Maybe that's why this is the only Bradbury script. Like, is he a big influence on this stuff? Yeah, he's a seminal sci-fi writer, but maybe he didn't really write so much with the grit that a non-comedy Twilight Zone episode usually needs. Like, because several were rejected. They might have just been missing the special sauce for the show.
Well, you also mentioned BC mentioned some possible light plagiarizing, so maybe those scripts got submitted and came out as something else.
That could also be the case. But yeah, there does, like you said, this doesn't quite seem to be a Twilight Zone episode, even though Rod tells us it's the Twilight Zone at the beginning, Not to
That's
take
true.
away from it, but just, yeah, that's so that almost takes away my second question. We can make it worthwhile and wonder if Grandma deserves her fate to go rejoin the collective. You can see her in a regenerating thing at the end of the episode. That'd be a good last shot for this if they knew that existed.
Or a room full of knitting grandmas, which is how they portrayed it in the 82 in the 81 version.
Regenerating a Borg cube, knitting grandmas. That's what you want.
Instead of Borg, it's rocking chairs. Yeah, it's
Okay.
the same idea.
It is, she mentioned being possibly, a couple of different things. One of which she mentioned was being disassembled and her parts being used to make other grandmas. But don't worry, because my memories will always exist. It's probably, unless like Facsimile Limited is, gotten into the business of, lightly used grandmas. They're probably gonna have to do that, right? Because who would go out there? What are the odds of somebody going out there picking, same body type, same voice, same eyes, same hair length, all those things that the kids, all those parts the kids threw down the bin.
Yeah. It's like
So
from the showroom she came, and to the showroom she shall return.
Yeah. So I think grandma's destined to be probably recycled back into the parts bin. But those memories, man, and I think that was key. Those memories will live on forever. And that's kind of a cool thing. That's kind of a cool legacy.
Yeah, I guess just from a more modern perspective, like we take some synthetic things, I guess, more seriously now, So it seems like garbage binning it. I mean, I still have a phone and an iPad sitting here that I just haven't gotten rid of, and they have no feelings that I know of. So if they're probably listening to me and fuming if they do.
Oh yeah, I think I got one over here too. Here's an old phone. Yeah.
So Brian, did you I never answered the question, so I'll just do you feel like I guess we'll just say anybody deserved their trip through the Twilight Zone? Is that right, Matt?
Well, yeah. Well, deserve is a two-edged sword. I mean, deserve it in a good sense, or deserve it in like a punitive sense. That's what I think often put it as like, and the devil came and took his soul. The end, sort of thing. It's not like that at all. I think the kids got what they needed from her. I think she did her job well. I think she's got some sort of job security, I guess, maybe, who knows, in some form or another in terms of her memory. Yeah, it was a happy ending. So I think no one deserved to be um rung through the ringer of a Twilight Zone twist ending. It was all pretty lighthearted and was very pleasant. So
let's
yeah, I would say, I mean, as a dad, I think I probably could relate. If I was a child that lost their mom, I might be in that position, but I didn't. That wasn't me. So the closest person I could probably relate to is the dad, and he loved those kids, man. He really did, and he came up with an answer, that wasn't perfect, but it worked, and if he got what he deserved by being dedicated to his family and finding a way to keep his kids together and not having the evil Aunt Nedra take them away, then I think he got what he deserved, which was keeping his family intact and raising kids that, by all accounts, by everything we got to see on screen, grew up to be healthy, well-adjusted people.
So that leads us to where we put this one on the tripometer. 0 is not trippy at all. 5 is very trippy.
I would pretty low, like I was alluding to. It's just such a gentle tale. It doesn't really have I mean, yeah, the idea of a robot living with your family is in some sense trippy, but it's for 1962. But it was just everything about it was just so, at ease. It was not mind bending in any significant way to me. So
Yeah, I would say the, sort of a one-ish, just for the advanced technology, and again, there's, no limit to the imagination. I think what we saw watching this in 2024 is maybe less awe-inspiring than how it looked in 1962. It probably seemed much more, much more, had more, maybe more of a wow factor, maybe more of a otherworldliness to it than what we have now. So I think that would account for the trippiness of it. So, I think I'm probably way out of my depth here to try to imagine what people in 1962 were thinking, especially when they're reading, magazines like Modern Science, that, maybe 1.75.
Yeah, I'm in your general range. I was thinking I thought it's a 2. I'm like, it's probably 1. Oh no, it's a 2. I'll give a point just for that store. The store was a properly trippy sequence. With the rest of the episode really not being that, but which it doesn't have to be. I mean, Tripometer again is not a quality rating. It's a well-made episode. My last note was, okay, I said it's pretty good, but a shade away from catching fire. There's no fire in this episode, I guess would be my criticism if I had one.
Oh, I would amend it slightly. I might say Grandma's hands deserve maybe a 2 or 2.5 because they're like replicators. Just anything can pop out of her hands.
Oh yeah, she
That
talks
was
to
the
people.
trippiest part.
Talk to the hand. She does that a lot, doesn't she? No, the hand talks to you.
She's pouring coffee with her fingers. You have all that weird stuff.
Okay, yeah, that was a little weird, but again, that's not
So
pertinent to the story, so it's kind of just off to the side almost.
Yeah. I've just said the hands only.
The store stuck with me, I guess. So that's where my little extra bit of
yeah, the
point
story was
system-
trippy.
It is, yeah. I think the wall of ears is what's going to stick with me, despite all those eyeballs. I don't know.
The store was trippy, and okay, yeah, he saw the advertisement in the magazine. Modern Science, real magazine. Anybody know? Or
He might have ended up with sea monkeys. I mean,
He meant to order the sea monkeys.
I guess we'll wind this one down. But Mike, what's going on in your world?
we're waiting on hopefully a release date of season 4 of the Orville. Seth was on a not our show the other day, but he was on a different podcast, and he said we're working on it, which was all that came up, but nothing on that yet. Chatting with folks at the network, there's a possibility of sort of covering other shows in the meantime. Other kind of, I'll just say, Star Trek adjacent shows, kind of centering around maybe people that worked on Star Trek at one point and then moved on to other things, and to see if any of that Star Trek DNA went with them, which is kind of how we settled on the Orville, to cover that first. Because while Seth MacFarlane did do 2 episodes as Ensign Rivers on Star Trek Enterprise, it was really the Star Trek DNA that Brandon Braga and Joe Menosky and Marvin Rush and other folks, the Yakutas, brought to the Orville that really kind of gave it that real sense of Star Trek feel that went out there, that had that pedigree with it. So kind of following in that, there are many other shows that have been produced in the last 20, 30, 40 years that are very heavy with Star Trek alums producing those. So we might start to look at some of those things going forward while we're waiting for season 4.
All righty. As for us, we do a lot of podcasts. You can support us on Patreon. Podcastio, so that is our jam. Where we do this time of podcast. You'll get episodes early with a little extra chatter. We talk about really good movies and really bad movies on Films and Filth, which both of you guys occasionally pop up on. as well as Podcast 1999, where we are covering Space 1999 and video games with Lucas, Pokemon, Hyrule Field Report, and game show. Brian, I assume that our plug is basically your plug at the moment.
This is where I hang my shingle these days, I guess.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. Go. What kind of grandma are you gonna get? Lightly used grandma.
I don't know. Gray hair, blue eyes, the typical grandma.
I don't think we're getting that turn on mic on this one.
I'm just thinking I'd go down the line and be like, it's not a grandma. Hey, don't judge.
Marissa Tomei, Aunt May. Does that count as a grandma? Aunt May used to be a grandma.
Exactly.
Okay, I guess I will cut it there then. I'll probably be bugging you in February. We got a few that you were interested in movie wise, which was
that's great.
Requiem for a Dream and Inglorious Bastards. Your name is attached to those at the moment if you're interested.
Nice.
And Brian, we basically have to record Space Brain in 48 hours. If you're free, you could join us. That's Tuesday.
Wait, that's not Brian the Brain, is it?
That's season 2, which we won't do that one without him. But
I'm definitely doing Brian the Brain.
Yeah,
that one's got my name on it, literally.
It has his name on it, literally. But yeah, we're gonna be doing that at your 3:30 Tuesday if you want to do that. So, but I'm unfortunately we finally caught up where we're basically recording the podcast 99. It's like right up at the edge now.
Oh wow. Well, if you Tuesday, probably will work. I wasn't expecting another one until what was the next one down the line? I think it was after that.
Next week is the Infernal Machine. If you just want to wait for that, that's also fine. I mean,
I think that was the one I'd earmarked. I mean, I was gonna do Space Brain so I could do all the Brain episodes.
Yeah.
I'll be your one-stop brain guy.
Right. I don't have flexibility for recording that one anymore.
Well, they'll pick one or the other, I suppose. I don't want to bogart all the episodes here at the end of the season. I know there's some that John's probably gonna be back for. I don't know what's Mike's plan for
U.S.
Moonbase Alpha
second season 1. I think you're the only person so far that's requested a second season. Brian the Brain, but
I have.
Right. I just amended that. I'm looking. Maybe I added you to a few on the list. There's my list. I'm really curious which one you.
Yeah, let me know. I don't know where what blanks you have to fill in at this point, but I'm happy to help.
Season 2 is pretty. Like I said, you're the only person attached to a season 2 at the moment. So
okay,
and a few that Brian the Brain. Yeah, your name.
I had a couple in season 2. I think I wanted to do Journey to Where. That was the other one that I remember.
Sure. Okay, I'll add your name to that now then, because I only have it on Brian the Brain at the moment on my list.
So. Oh, okay. Well, those are the two that popped to the top of my memory. But
let me take a look. I don't think I'm worthy of the Dorkons because that's a series finale.
You can come on for Dorkons if you wanted the Bringers of Wonder Part 1 and 2. Okay,
I did.
I think that was Norm.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think everybody probably wanted that.
You asked for it. No, you're the only. No, because Norm didn't say anything about season 2. So yeah, you.
Okay.
Okay. He wanted Dragon's Domain because they had rubber monsters. He wants the rubber monster episodes.
Well, there's that's. So you'll do Bringers of Wonder Part 1 and 2 as a single episode, as a single podcast.
I think
makes sense.
Probably yes.
Okay.
So
that's going
to be July when that airs, so it's not like. And you know what? It might be more like August because I think we might put a few weeks between season 1 and 2. So
okay, the Dorkons is so fucking funny, man. So you just do. Is it you and Luke that do most of these? Mark, and then with a couple of guests occasionally.
Right, I occasionally include a guest or two, but.
I thought your plan was like every other episode or something. You had a guest, but I mean,
it's not a hard and fast rule or anything, But yeah, it's generally what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Bringers of Wonder. I thought that was kind of a one of those things I'd ask for, but I'd be ninth in line for it.
Yeah, me too. I thought that was a definite.
Cool. No, it's just no one. It's just that nobody, because talked about season 2 yet, basically.
All right. Well, I may throw my name in there for. I may shoot you an email with 1 or 2 more just to give you some options. Yeah, right.
Sure.
Strictly just to give you options if you need somebody.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So
and happy to do them, but I don't want to be like, no, I said I was doing that.
no,
There's a lot of cheese in season 2, so
Journey to Where is a good one though too. I'm glad you said you're doing that one, right?
I want Journey to Where.
That's a good one, man.
Those were the fun ones.
Season 2 is going to be all new for us because I used to only have the first season. I have both now, but I just never really got around to watching a second one. I'm a little too young to have caught them on proper TV. So back in the day, so.
Good. Yeah, I'm just kind of glancing down them now. Sounds good. Yeah, let me
Devil's
know about
Planet,
the Film and Filth podcast.
So those are relative. They're actually relatively close. So we would have to do them probably both of them in the first couple weeks of February if you got some time in February. So
I got time. Sunday night's probably best for me. Monday night's probably second best.
Those are the worst for Luke, unfortunately. Which if it's the other ones, it's fine. But
okay. What about Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday night?
I think with Luke, it's got to be. You said Monday night was good. Monday, Tuesday. It's possible. Well, I'll get back to you. Yeah, I think your schedule and Luke's schedules are like slightly at odds, unfortunately.
Okay.
With me and Mark, it's never a problem because
I can't remember how far down the list I last looked for Films and Filth.
Well,
what
did
I say?
The actual list, I believe. I sent it to you, right?
Yeah, but you have a revised one, right? Because since the strike and everything, it's all changed it. If you could send me the revised one and refresh my memory,
I'll send it to both of you because I'm starting to look for. I'm starting to get to the point where people only ask for like the first 40 movies, right? So now we're getting past that, and I don't have as many names.
Oh yeah.
I remember some names way down that list towards
John
Champion
spots. Already requested Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas, which we will not be doing until like 2027. So.
I know it seems so strange to put a pin in that now.
Yeah, why not? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop this recording.
Okay, I'll go ahead and send you my local.